Billy, you so crazy.
Yo, what's cracking? What's bracking? It's your boy, Billy, you so crazy, and we back, and we back, and we back, and we back with another one. Y'all read the title, so you already know what we're doing, man. This is 10 last-minute changes that saved movies and 5 that ruined them. Now, this is going to be interesting, all right? If you are new to this channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Comment down below what you want to see your boy react to next, and I will have it up for you when I get the chance. Just be patient with me, man. If you want it done a whole lot quicker, I do have a Patreon link in the description, so feel free. If you like to donate, help the channel out, or anything like that, no pressure, no worries. You don't have to. It's only if you want to, all right? But enough talking. Let's get straight into this 10 last-minute changes that saved movies and 5 that ruined them.
We have scored big this time.
Movie making is a tough process. It costs millions of dollars and puts countless careers on the line.
I like to live dangerously.
A success could make bank at the box office, and a failure could tank an entire studio. Both our favorite films and the most disasters are made or broken by the last-minute decisions of Hollywood heavyweights and rookie filmmakers alike.
All right, get out of here! All of you, move it!
So join Screen Rant as we go through these 10 last-minute changes that saved some of our favorite films, and 5 more that ruined some of our most cherished franchises.
Oh, Star Wars is in there.
Listen to me very carefully.
Movies are often made in the editing room. The editors cobble together various bits of footage, developing the movie's tension, zeroing in on the film's point of view, and piecing the whole thing together like a giant puzzle with the script and guidance of the director. While George Lucas gets all of the credit for creating Star Wars, the success of that first movie and the very existence of its sequels is due to the work of its editing team. The editors, Richard Chew, Paul Hirsch, and George's wife, Marcia Lucas, were so integral that they won an Oscar for their work. And their biggest contribution was that they saved the ending. The Death Star trench run was originally much longer and lacked all the tension. At first, Luke was supposed to make 2 flights through the trench. This was trimmed down to 1 run. Also, the fact that the Death Star was preparing to fire on the Rebel base was added at the producer's insistence. Marcia explained that the audience needed to cheer when Han showed up at the end. And ultimately, she was right.
Yeah.
Terminator 2 Judgment Day might not be one of the best regarded sequels of all time
Okay, I'm gonna keep it a buck with y'all. I've never seen the Terminator. Never seen it. I'm gonna keep it a whole buck with y'all.
if it was released with its original ending.
Sure.
Visionary director James Cameron planned for the final scene of his film to flash forward several decades into the future. In this alternate timeline, following the destruction of both the good T-800 and the bad T-1000, John Connor had grown up into an important politician, and Sarah was living in DC with his family as a well-adjusted grandmother. This would have been quite a change for the militant fugitive from justice that we see for most of the film. And while this ending is certainly a fun what-if, it lacks the punch of the actual theatrical ending. Hugh Jackman was the breakout star of the X-Men movies, and Wolverine was the most popular anti-hero of the bunch. He was such a big hit that he spawned several spin-off films, even though the original X-Men trilogy focused mostly on Wolverine anyway. Jackman is perfect for the part, and he's only gotten better with age. Sure, playing the role in 2 decades worth of movies has definitely helped, but he somehow managed to stay as ageless as the immortal Logan. So it's actually kinda shocking to consider that he wasn't originally cast in the part. In the first X-Men film, the role went to Scottish actor Dougray Scott. Unfortunately for Scott, filming on Mission Impossible 2 had run over schedule. His obligation was to complete photography on John Woo's Mission Impossible sequel, where he played the villain. And this commitment required Scott to drop out of Marvel's first mutant movie. The X-Men production team was then forced to scramble to replace him. This allowed Jackman to step in and become a box office star. When you realize how last minute this replacement actually was, Jackman's turn as Wolverine is actually even more impressive.
And to be honest, it worked out better for him. I don't think it would have fit with no other person than him, to be honest.
The Wizard of Oz is one of the most beloved movies of all time. But one element that really revolutionized the film industry nowadays seems like it was the Wizard of Oz's easiest effect: the transition from the black and white of canvas to the color of Oz. While the filmmakers had always planned on incorporating this element into the movie, nobody involved in production seemed to put a ton of thought into making it a reality. At the time, authentically colorized films were relatively new to Hollywood. Thankfully, the production team, under the leadership of producer Marvin Leroy, decided to shoot additional Kansas footage. And it was for the shot of Dorothy stepping out of her home into Munchkinland that the director decided to paint the interior of Dorothy's home various shades of black and white. Judy Garland herself remained unchanged, wearing her signature blue dress and red curls, but the darkness on set meant that she wouldn't appear in color until she stepped into the Technicolor set of Munchkinland. This breathtaking introduction to Oz made the movie that much more impactful. Tom Hanks has the best kind of reputation in Hollywood. He's full of charisma, he's treated like movie star royalty, and yet he seems like an average guy. Even when playing an unsavory type, there's still something about him that we, the audience, sympathize with. So it may be a bit of a surprise to learn that one of his most popular characters, Woody from Toy Story, was originally considered too unlikable. Midway through the production of the first film, the Pixar team realized that Woody was too much of a jerk, as Hanks himself put it. So Pixar quickly halted Toy Story's voice and animation work in order to retool the script and tone down Woody's villainous tendencies. The finished—
Nah, for real though, low-key though, Woody was kind of a bully. Like the whole first movie, he low-key was a bully, and then by the end, you're like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? He did kind of come and cross territories a little bit.
Product is a movie that is still spawning sequels
But
nearly 2
Toy
decades
Story is the
later.
greatest. It's the greatest. I love Toy Story.
In the late 90s and early 2000s, Mike Myers was on a roll. Fresh off of his breakout success from Saturday Night Live, Myers went on to find cult comedy stardom with Austin Powers, which blew up into a beloved series of films. We'll just pretend the third one didn't happen. But his other franchise that made millions at the box office was the animated fairy tale mashup known as Shrek. The role of Shrek was originally intended for another SNL icon, Chris Farley. When Farley tragically passed, Myers was brought on to voice the gentle green giant. At the time, Mike Myers was content on voicing the role in a heightened version of his natural Canadian accent.
Yeah, you know what? You thought wrong.
But after hearing a sample of John Lithgow's hoity-toity British accent, Myers decided to compliment it.
Indeed.
Whether audiences noticed it or not, they would subconsciously assume that Shrek was of lower status than Lord Farquaad. Rewrites and re-recordings reportedly cost about $4 million, but the film's profits more than made that money back.
Oh, for sure. First of all, I did not know it cost that much to do a voiceover. That's crazy.
Some last-minute changes are made so close to the wire, they happen days or even hours before a film premieres. This one, however, occurred after the movie debuted. While Cats is a more recent film that's become notorious for the tweaks made to its effects following the release, the late great Stanley Kubrick was much more of a perfectionist. Kubrick was known to be a perfectionist who constantly adjusted every aspect of his films, from the scripts to the sets to the costumes to the shots throughout production. He even pushed some of his actors to their breaking points. His horror classic The Shining has gone on to become a Halloween staple, but at the time of its release, Kubrick was less sure about how it would be received. Initially, the movie had an epilogue after Jack freezes in the maze, but viewers felt that it was muddling the closing scenes of the film. So Kubrick sent out an order and movie theater projectionists were required to remove the epilogue from the film. They literally had to cut out the final scene of the movie with scissors and then paste the film back together.
I could not imagine making a movie back then, boy. Stress.
Now, let's step back in time to 1985. Co-writers Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale had concocted a time travel family comedy with a souped-up DeLorean and a weird mother-son dynamic.
Great Scott!
With Zemeckis in the director's chair and Steven Spielberg as the steadfast producer, what could go wrong? Well, during principal photography, Zemeckis and Gale started to get the sinking feeling that they had cast the wrong actor. Originally, the role of Marty McFly was played by Eric Stoltz. Yep, even though it is nearly impossible to imagine anybody other than Michael J. Fox in the role, Stoltz had been cast in the part. After spending a month trying to make Stoltz's performance work, his take on the character was just too serious. The filmmakers had a tough conversation with Stoltz before striking a deal with the producers of Fox's sitcom Family Ties. They allowed him to work day and night, both on the show and the movie. It was an exhausting schedule, but it saved Back to the Future and made it into the amazing movie it is today.
Really, it really did.
Speaking of actors who almost didn't play iconic roles, Harrison Ford was originally not Indiana Jones. George Lucas and Steven Spielberg had an entirely different star in mind, and this one had a mustache. While
Who's that?
Spielberg always wanted Ford to grab the whip and don the fedora, Lucas didn't want to work with anyone he had collaborated with before. Yet the situation changed, and Selick's commitment to the hit TV show Magnum P.I. on CBS wouldn't allow him to take the role. So Spielberg and Lucas decided to go with their backup plan, Harrison Ford, and the rest is history. Ford also got the role of Han Solo thanks to his prior connection.
I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I slept on dang, what's this movie called again? Indiana Jones. I slept on it. I slept on it for a cool minute, and then I watched it one day, and I was like, Holy Grail.
Connections to George
Fire.
Lucas, having played a small role in American Graffiti. During auditions for Star Wars, Ford served as a reader, reading sides with actors trying out for parts in the film. His laid-back delivery impressed the casting director so much that Ford ended up being the one to nab the part of the smug intergalactic smuggler. Ford seems to owe his entire career to Lucas, even though 2 of his 3 roles, Han and Indy, were given to him as an afterthought.
I've done more than I bargained for on this
I
trip
don't care.
already.
Give it to me as an afterthought. I
When
don't care. That's
Disney
a check
bought
that's coming
Star Wars,
forever.
they intended for the sequel trilogy, episodes 7, 8, and 9, to be their flagship films. But one of the most iconic moments in recent Star Wars history came from the epic battles and plucky characters of Rogue One. It's hard to imagine that the movie was almost made as an afterthought to capitalize on Disney's Star Wars bonanza. Even the big finale of Rogue One was basically an afterthought as well. The final sequence, in which Darth Vader tears through corridors, lightsabers through Alliance soldiers, and tracks down Leia's ship, was all handled in reshoots. Apparently, the creative team felt that the ending, as originally intended, lacked a punch that only a Darth Vader rampage could bring. You've heard
That's
the success
interesting.
stories, and now it's time for the cinematic tragedies. Maybe it looks campy now, but Superman the movie, starring Christopher Reeve as the Man in Tights, was a mind-blowing science fiction superhero epic.
What more could anyone ask?
The film was a huge undertaking because the producers decided to film Superman 1 and 2 back to back. This team were notoriously difficult though, and they often butted heads with director Richard Donner because Donner demanded quality work, and quality cost them more time and more money. When Superman 1 was released, the producers dumped Donner despite its success and hired British director Richard Lester of Three Musketeers and Beatles movie fame to finish Superman 2. While most of the sequel was in the can, Lester decided to reshoot over 50% of the film. Superman 2 is still a widely beloved movie and received great reviews when it was originally released, but you can't deny that 2 is much campier than 1, with slapstick action sequences, odd new powers for both Superman and General Zod, and a generally tongue-in-cheek tone. It took 26 years until 2006 for Richard Donner to release his cut of the movie, and even then, the cut lacks completed footage for many sequences. Part of the appeal of the Alien
I'm gonna keep it a buck again. I've never seen that Superman either.
franchise is that each film seems to be
And the way
made
it looked, I don't want to,
independently
to
of
be
the
honest.
others. The franchise doesn't appear to have been a major cash grab on
I've seen
behalf
that
of
a
the
long time ago.
producers. That is, before recent years, they didn't have a massive shared universe in mind, and the earlier films didn't really try to set up for sequels. And that was part of the problem for Alien 3. The first 2 films were so scary, so intense, and so popular. Heck, Sigourney Weaver was nominated for an Oscar for her work in 1986's Aliens, that the third movie was a tough egg for the creative team to crack.
What are we going to do?
Director David Fincher, who has since proven himself as a Hollywood visionary, was often at odds with the studio. They kept re-editing the film and forcing changes against his will until Fincher was ultimately removed from production. When the finished product was released, it was considered a disappointment by most fans and Hollywood insiders. In 1988, Die Hard changed the way we thought about action movies, and Christmas movies too. Its first 2 sequels mimicked the formula but still found ways to keep us thrilled. And then came Live Free or Die Hard. After a 12-year absence from the big screen, John McClane was starting to show his age.
Got invited to the Christmas party by mistake.
I
Sure,
mean, it
the film
happens.
still has
We all
its
get old.
moments, and it has a much higher Rotten Tomatoes score than its predecessor, but Live Free or Die Hard was the first film film in the franchise to have a PG-13 rating. While the movie was shot with an R rating in mind, it was re-edited at the studio's insistence in order to appeal to a wider audience.
Always.
This version cut down on violence and even cut down McClane's original catchphrase to simply yippee-ki-yay. The original edit was restored for the DVD release, which brought back the violence and brought back the famous ending to yippee-ki-yay. But fewer fans have seen this version than the original theatrical release, and there's still an unfavorable reaction associated with this movie. I Am Legend doesn't get a lot of love among cinephiles, and it's probably for this reason.
Yikes.
The movie misses the whole point of the book. In the film, Will Smith's character lives in a
I didn't even know that there was a book.
post-apocalyptic New York City that is overrun by zombie vampires. Naturally, the movie is full of sequences in which Smith blows up these creatures mercilessly, and since they seem to be violent, bloodthirsty monsters, we fully support the guy. Originally, in Will Smith's final confrontation with these creatures, he learns that they are just as scared of him as he is of them. The human and vampire zombies realize they're not so different after all. Everyone learns a lesson. I Am Legend refers to Will Smith's character. He is the legendary monster that these creatures fear. It is a philosophical idea that deepens the movie, and apparently it was too deep for test audiences. They were so turned off by the mutual understanding of the ending that filmmakers changed it. Instead, Will firebombs his way through the now mindless monsters and rides off into the sunset with other survivors. This change paid off in the short run, but ultimately made I Am Legend into a more forgettable film.
Yeah, the other ending was way better than that, for sure.
And finally, let's dig into
real.
Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Where did Episode 9 go wrong? Well,
I've never seen
Colin
that one.
Trevorrow's original version of the script was pretty different. It focused more on the personal battle between Kylo Ren and Rey, while Princess Leia was more central to the film. Since this draft was completed before Carrie Fisher's untimely passing, Luke Skywalker had more to do as well. Each character, including Rose, was given some useful objective in the lead up to the final battle. In the end, this draft seems to do a better job of tying together not only the loose ends of the sequel trilogy, but all the other trilogies as well. Yet, when Fisher passed and The Last Jedi divided fandom, the people at Lucasfilm struggled to unite behind a single idea. So J.J. Abrams took over and threw everything and the kitchen sink into the movie. Sure, it was great to have Palpatine back, but his presence undid Luke Skywalker's victory at the end of Return of the Jedi, and the rumor mills swirled about the internal struggles at Lucasfilm. Many reshoots were undertaken because the creative team couldn't seem to agree on how to end the franchise. In the end, it seems like there were too many cooks in the Star Wars test kitchen.
Yep, too many hands in that pot.
Reassuring.
Way too many hands.
Do you love to love these success stories?
So those were 10 last minute changes that saved movies and 5 that ruined them. Were some of those ones that you guys already know? Like already knew already? Let me know in the comment section. If you enjoyed this reaction, give this video a thumbs up. Comment down below what you want to see a boy react to next. Follow me on all my social media links are right there. Send me a message on any one of those and I get back with you as soon as possible. It is your boy BillyYouSoCrazy, and I'll see you on the next video, man. I'm out this door.